What is going on, Ballislife family? I'm Devin Ugland, and I'm joined by my co-host Ronnie Flores, and this is the Ballislife original show on the rise. On today's episode, we're taking a closer look at UCLA's breakout star, Johnny Juzang. Ronnie, we saw a lot of Johnny when he was at Harvard-Westlake and when he was with the Compton Magic in the AAU circuit. Give us a bigger, more in-depth breakdown of Johnny Juzang's high school career.
Yeah, Devin, appreciate you coming on with me to talk about Johnny. Obviously, this is something new in terms of, like, we probably didn't expect to be talking about Johnny, but it just kind of rose up and we had to talk about him. Literally, he's on the rise in this draft and on this tournament. And, you know, Johnny's high school career, you know, he came in as a highly regarded youth player. He was well known and he was expected to make a big splash at Harvard-Westlake. He did a very good job. He ended up playing 3 years there because he reclassified down from the 220 to the 219 class. And, you know, he helped Harvard-Westlake win the Mission League title his last year at Harvard-Westlake, which was his junior year. Averaged 23 points, 8.5 rebounds, 3.4 assists. You know, he was an impact player. One thing that happened that year is the team went 21-9, but of those 30 games, Johnny missed 15. And I think, Devin, we're going to talk a little bit about that. That's one of the things we want to mention with Johnny when we talk about his strengths, his areas of improvement, and where he projects is missing games or some of the injuries.
Appreciate that breakdown, Ronnie. Good stuff as usual. Let's jump into the strengths of Johnny Juzang's game. I will start. And as we've known Ronnie since he was a youth player in 8th grade and heading into the 9th grade at Harvard-Westlake, he's just a guy who has always been wired to score. And he can do so in a variety of ways, whether it's the catch and shoot three, the 1 or 2 dribble pull-up, or, you know, using his elite footwork to kind of create space in that mid-post level and hit fadeaways, or, you know, get an angle, hit off the glass and score. He's just wired for it. And the guy who, when the ball is in his hands, Ronnie, he's looking to go get a basket, right?
Yes.
And I think one of the things we saw from Johnny as far as growth goes in his game at the high school level and now, you know, into college at UCLA is just the overall basketball IQ of, you know, knowing when it's a good shot or a bad shot, or knowing when you have numbers as opposed to forcing something in transition. I just like the way that Johnny has evolved into a guy who can dance a little bit on the perimeter with the dribble, create space at the 3-point line into a rhythm jumper. In high school, I think he was more of a catch and shoot guy than shot fake, get to the basket, and, you know, use his 6'6", 6'7" frame to finish over smaller defenders. But as you saw in the NCAA tournament, he's showed the ability to kind of, you know, break a guy down in isolation and create space, get a shot off, or, you know, go by somebody for 1 or 2 dribbles and finish around the back, finish at the mid-range level. And that's a testament to Johnny's footwork. That's a testament to his ability to identify and attack angles. And I think those things for him, because he's not a great athlete or not a speedster or not a guy who's going to break you down in isolation and get to the basket with the dribble. Like, he's not Allen Iverson. He's not
Davion Mitchell. He's not
Davion Mitchell. He's not super shifty like that.
Sure.
But he knows where his spot is and he knows how to get there and either rise up for a jumper, or he plays off 2 feet in the paint. And I like that. You know, a lot of guys are looking to get in the paint, jump and make a pass, or, you know, finish, you know, same foot, same hand, something like that. But Johnny, 2 feet, pivots. He really has impressive footwork and the ability to create space from shot blockers or defenders, and hit fadeaway jumpers, you know, whether it's off the glass or just with straight up touch. And I think there was a couple times I saw Ronnie, he kind of, you know, threw up a little like a baby hook shot or a kind of a runner. And again, it just goes back to the initial point with Johnny is he's a guy who wants to go out there and get baskets. Ronnie, let's jump into your strengths.
Yeah, I'll keep the strengths high line because you went over the details. Yeah. That was great. I want to mention the main 3 things I see is the combination of size, because he has good size, the shooting with scoring, and the third thing is his confidence. As you said, it just he you know, believes he can score, he believes he can get a bucket, and I think his teammates and his coaches think he can get one. When the ball's in his hands, you know, I think coaches, you know, Mick Cronin and others felt confident that he can go get that bucket or get on the board or get to the glass, you know, and also get to the line. You know, positive things happen, especially in this tournament, more than not, you know, 8 out of 10 times. Very, very rarely did a negative thing happen. And I think that's why we're doing this show, and quite frankly, why he's on NBA boards, because you see his his size and you see his scoring ability, and you broke it down in detail why he can do that. So I like those things about him. He has range. He has pretty good deep range. He's a size to score, inside a bit. And there's a lot to like about him, whether he's catch and shoot or one-on-one, like you said, he can create a bit. And I think that will intrigue NBA scouts. Obviously there's some things he needs to work out, which we'll get into, but there's a lot to like. And if you look at his numbers, you can't really deny them. Obviously they won, they made a deep run. It gave him great exposure. And I think besides Lew Alcindor / Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he scored more points than any UCLA player in the tournament. So that obviously means something. And that's why we're here breaking down his game.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up if you didn't. The fact that it's Lew Alcindor, aka Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Johnny Juzang, Bill Walton as the guy.
Hey, what a threesome! What a threesome!
That's insane.
Yeah,
I mean, those names, to put yourself in that conversation, just shows that his ability to score the basketball. I know a lot of people hate that term, score the basketball, but that's what Johnny does. And I think in high school, a lot of people kind of labeled him as a shooter, Ronnie.
Sure.
When I don't necessarily think he was a quote unquote shooter, maybe more so on the AAU circuit.
Yeah.
Because they had such a talented team. That Compton Magic team was so good, and every guy really had their role. But if you watched him anytime at Harvard Westlake, it was baskets in, very different ways, a variety of ways. And Johnny's only kind of, built on that over the last couple of seasons. And now we can jump into the areas of improvement for Johnny. Why don't you start us off, Ronnie?
Yeah, Devin, when we talk about Johnny's areas of improvement and things he needs to work on for the next level, I want to take it back to the grassroots level, as you mentioned. Going back to that, Titanic Compton Magic team takeover game, Johnny was 4 for 7 from 3-point range, and, kind of put him on the map that summer of 2018 in Las Vegas. And he really had it going offensively, but he also took a shot down the stretch with his team leading that I vividly remember. And I was like, well, they didn't need that shot. Obviously, they pulled out the win. But that's something that I think Johnny needs to work out. So when he gets deep, sometimes as you see, he sometimes maybe over penetrates. He's got to worry about that. So he's got to work on his shot selection and finding his role as a contributor, because Johnny has like an alpha dog scoring mentality, and that was his role obviously at Harvard Westlake, and that was his role on this UCLA team. But that's not necessarily going to be his role in the NBA. So creating off the bounce, will he be able to do that? So creating is the second main thing I wanted to see in this area of improvement, along with the shot selection. And, if he's going to be a specialist, how high do you take a specialist, Devin? I think we're going to talk about that in here in a minute. And if that's okay if he's a specialist, because he's one hell of a specialist. So is he going to be a specialist, or going to be somebody that can create a bit? And then when we go talk about his high school career again, and we saw this in the tournament a bit, Cody Riley fell on him, and he tweaked his ankle, wasn't sure if he was going to come back in the game. He had some injury problems. We saw that in the tournament, and his senior year at Harvard Westlake, or what turned out to be a senior, because again, he classed back and went to Kentucky. He missed 15 of 30 games. So durability, I think that's the third point people are going to look at when you talk about the NBA draft. People say, is he durable enough to last the rigors of an NBA? Do we want to draft a kid that had, is he going to last? Is his body going to hold up? And that's a fair assessment by an NBA team. They do that for a lot of players, some not as talented as Johnny, some more talented as Johnny. And then the last thing you got to think about is his defense. We saw it in the tournament. He got blown by ball handlers more than once. Obviously his scoring is a premium. We've talked about that. And luckily for Johnny, now that's even more of a premium in the NBA than it was in the past. But people are going to say, hey, can he guard his position? Can he guard guys? Can he keep guys in front? Again, I still think he's one of the top players in the tournament. That doesn't take away his performance, but he's never going to be confused with Stacey Augmon or anybody like that. But Devin, the question I have for you, can he improve in that area? How much can he improve in that area?
That's a great question. That kind of leads to a question of, is he going to go back and, try to mold that under Cronin for another year? Because Mick Cronin is obviously a great defensive coach. Or is he going to come out and take advantage of the fact that he's a trending player right now, and he's, on the rise. I don't want to keep, banging that one home, but hey, why not? It's the name of the show. Yeah. I think the key for Johnny to reach his potential and carve out a long-term NBA career is to tighten up that handle, get a little bit quicker, a little bit more quick twitch, and be able to create not only for himself off the bounce, but for teammates.
Sure.
read defenses, get into the teeth of the defense, kick to shooters. Because as we know, Ronnie, Johnny Juzang, as much as we love to watch him play and as much as we've watched him grow up from a youth player to a very good college player, he's a high usage rate, high volume scorer.
Sure.
And there's very few of those guys at the NBA level. And most of those guys who are that high usage rate, like James Harden or Trae Young or LeBron James, even LeBron James is kind of low usage rate, right? He gets off the ball a lot. So
they're NBA All-Stars, though.
they're All-Stars. They're like all-time level players. DeMar DeRozan is a guy who is similar in body type and is similar as far as high volume goes to Johnny. But is Johnny DeMar DeRozan? No, because he's not as explosive. So I think creating off the bounce for himself, creating off the bounce for his teammates, tightening up his handle are going to be, a couple very important things for him to carve out a long-term NBA future. Another thing, Ronnie, on the offensive end is moving without the basketball, setting up and coming off of screens, cutting without the basketball, finding open lanes, slashing, just being a guy who's constantly in motion, a la like Rip Hamilton. Not saying that Johnny Juzang is comparable to Rip Hamilton. I'm just saying like that's the kind of game he needs to adopt, is a Rip Hamilton type of constantly move without the ball, get open, curls, fade screens, knowing which way the defender is going over a screen so you can curl it or you can fade it. And just, shot preparation, getting those feet set, be ready to pull at all times. I don't think Johnny has any hesitation when it comes to pulling shots. So I'm not worried about him like that. But I think moving without the ball and being able to free himself from NBA defenders is going to be important. And then the next thing offensively for Johnny is the 2-foot jump stop and the pivoting going to be enough for him to make up for his lack of explosiveness when finishing around NBA rim protectors? You look at guys, the shot blockers in the NBA, Anthony Davis, Clint Capella, Miles Turner, all these high-level guys, 7-footers who are super explosive, long, and athletic. Can Johnny do similar things that he did in the NCAA tournament for UCLA at the NBA level in that 10 to 8 foot range? Because he was really good with the 1, 2, 3 dribbles, 2-foot jump stop, and then kind of the fade away, create space shot.
Is that going to somebody in the corner?
And read the defense and hit somebody? Is that going to work against Anthony Davis, or is Anthony Davis sending that thing the other way? It's remained to be seen. And I think that's an area of improvement. I think defensively, going back to your original question, that's a tough one, because I think we're going to see, if Johnny declares and goes through the NBA draft process, I think we're going to see a lot of the quote unquote 3-and-D like type of terminology for Johnny.
Sure.
But he's not a D guy right now. He's a 3 guy. And, is Kyle Korver a 3 guy? Yes. Is he a D guy? No. So there are spots for guys who can shoot the 3-point shot at an elite level, but Kyle Korver is an elite level 3-point shooter. You know what I'm saying? So, and he, it's tough to compare Johnny Juzang to a Kyle Korver, because that's just not fair for Johnny.
And not just that, I think Kyle knows his role, shot clock running down, comes in off the bench, catch and shoot and fire. Right now, Johnny's at many times bringing the ball up and trying to create one-on-one. Like you said, that's not going to be necessarily his game.
Correct. And that's for my last point on areas of improvement, Ronnie. I think you brought up a good point with shot selection. It's going to be key for him to take the right shots and be efficient with the shots that he takes. Shot creation for himself and others, fit and opportunity are going to be major keys for a guy like Johnny to carve out a long-term NBA career. Because, if he gets drafted, say he gets drafted too high, goes to a spot that is rebuilding and he's relied upon to be a guy, or expected to be a guy who comes in and contributes right away, I'm not sure if that's his gig. I'm not sure if that's what his NBA fit is. I think he's more of a off the bench guy at the beginning, learn a role, improve in the areas we discussed: ball handling, explosiveness, speed with the ball, and, just staying
in front of his man,
and improving a lot defensively. And then becoming that consistent level NBA 3-point shooter. Because when that line goes back, Ronnie, and the arenas get bigger, it gets a little bit different. All right, with the strengths and areas of improvement out of the way, Ronnie, let's jump into the comparables for Johnny Juzang. Why don't you break down a couple of the names you have on your list here?
for Johnny, obviously, there's plenty of guys I think that are like him in the NBA. And what I say that is because he has good size. That helps his draftability. That helps his ability to stick. You know, he's big. He can shoot over the top of people. So one name I thought I that made sense with size and physicality, and I think this guy was a lot more physical as a young player, where Johnny was more of a finesse player. But I think Johnny could be like him is Gary Trent Jr. I think he's finding his niche in the NBA. You know, I think, you know, he's a wired scoring guy and a guy. Um, Another name I thought of, again, this guy's going to get drafted higher than Johnny ever will because he had an All-American career, but Lamont Murray, who spent most of the time with the Clippers, he was about 6'8", terrific shooter. Like Johnny, a little upright, not the greatest of shifty of the athlete, but, you know, he played in 700 NBA games and he averaged 11 points per game, and he had some 15-point per game season. So I think that's Johnny is capable of that if he finds, like you said, the right fit and sticks. Again, Lamont Murray, I think, went 7, if I'm not correct. He played with Jason Kidd at Cal, and it was like he had high expectations, but his career came down to what something of Johnny could be. I think for the ceiling, I think it's somebody you mentioned, and there's one guy I mentioned. I'll start with the guy you mentioned, is Tobias Harris, who kind of really came on in the NBA, showed he can stick, show he can score. And then the guy I like is more as a catch and shoot specialist. And there's two of them. One is the long-term, I think, specialist is Jason Capono. Obviously, he, like you said, you have to be a really good shooter and one of the best shooters. So if Johnny can develop to that, I think he can stick into that specialist role or a catch and shoot role on a really good team. The guy I would look for is Mike Miller, who, like, you know, obviously we think of him with those Miami Heat teams, hitting the right shots at the right time, playing with other great players. I think those are all comparable roles for Johnny, whether it be Capono and Miller on a really good team or maybe a Gary Trent type of player on a team that's a lesser team where he's relied more upon.
Yeah, I think those are good names, Ronnie. And just I think we agree on Mike Miller as a elite level comp, like the highest of ceilings.
Correct.
He had a great career.
Yeah.
Tobias Harris, again, he's kind of developed into more of a all around type player over the course of his NBA career. And I think, you know, Johnny can take some pages out of his book for sure. I think a less explosive Brent Barry, I'm going deep here as I usually do, similar type of role as Brent Barry had. And Brent Barry, Ronnie, you know, surprisingly is one of the top 3-point shooters, you know, in NBA history as far as made threes goes. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy because you think of him dunking from the free throw line.
Right. He's the NBA dunk contest champion. And you don't realize that as the athleticism kind of drained from his body, he learned he was able to diversify his game and, you know, stick in the league longer. Jeremy Lamb's another guy I like, more of a current comp. Luke Kennard, I think, is a good comp for him as far as body type and style of play goes. Luke Kennard.
I like Luke Kennard.
Yeah, I've watched a few Clipper games this year, just to kind of get a feel for NBA guys more. And Luke Kennard's a better playmaker than I expected. I thought he was going to be just, you know, catch and shoot, you know, kind of a one-trick pony. But he can get guys off the bounce. He's strong. He can hold guys on
body.
Yeah, he can hold guys on his hip, draw an extra defender, and make the high IQ play to a teammate. And I think Johnny can pull from that as well. Alec Burks, you know, Colorado standout, who's been in the NBA for a while. He's on the Knicks now. A guy who I think Johnny can, you know, is similar to. And Danny Green, you know, Danny Green takes a lot of heat.
Yeah, he does.
Understandably so.
Why does he take a lot of heat? Because he's always in the NBA finals or deep in the playoffs. So that's a good position.
Right. And when he's on the highest of stages, Ronnie, most of the time he's not shooting his best, or he's making bonehead plays. But,
you know, he's a feast and famine guy. He'll have one game with 9 3-pointers, and then the next game he's off.
0 for 10. But he wins. You know what I mean? Like he's an ingredient to NBA championships. And I think Johnny could be in that similar mold. I think another ceiling name, Ronnie, that some people are going to forget about, Danny Granger. Yeah. Danny Granger with Indiana was very good. Johnny's not 6'9". You know, he's a little smaller, but
6'7" or whatnot. Yeah.
6'7" plus. But I mean, Danny Granger, Ronnie, you know, in 08, 09 and 09, 10 and 10, 11 averaged better than 20 points a game. And in 08, 09, he was an all-star, averaged 25.8 points a game. He was a really good player
Yeah,
within
I
the end.
wouldn't think that, and I really wouldn't know that offhand.
Right.
Not like at the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, he played a decade in the league, and his fall off was fast. Maybe he got injured. I can't remember, but he shot 38% from three. And I think if Johnny can get into that again, 38% to 42% range from 3-point line, he can carve himself out a nice NBA career. All right, our future forecast segment is here. And I think the only question we have now, Ronnie, is Johnny going to take advantage of the up in stock that he saw from his NCAA tournament performance and test the NBA waters and stay in? Or should he come back for another season at UCLA? What are your thoughts?
Right offhand, Devin, I would say I think he should leave, and I obviously think he is going to test it, just because almost everybody with even in the range test it. And I have a few reasons for why I think he should go. And the main thing is, I think because one of the things is he's at UCLA. So what that means is expectations are going to be through the roof. And if next year, if they don't make a Final Four or make a deep Final Four run, what people, he's going to be one of the people they point to, say, hey, what's going on? How come they're not as good? He's almost basically got to be in line for Pac-12 Player of the Year honors next year if people are going to have the same Johnny, talking about Johnny and him being a player for the NBA, that type of thing. I just think you got to go when you're like you said, when you're hot or on the rise, as so to speak. And I just don't think his stock is going to be much better one calendar year from now. I think it could be similar. I just don't think it's going to be way higher, or like it's going to grow by leaps and bounds. I think it's naturally going to get better because a different crop of players are going to be in the draft. But I think for now, it's a time to strike because he's hot and he's been hot. And obviously they're adding another potential pro wing next year with Peyton Watson. Obviously, that's not a bad thing, but sometimes that happens with college teams. Everybody's expectations go up. Each individual's players' expectations go up, even if they're not going to say it in public. They all think, hey, I contributed to a Final Four team. I'm thinking about the NBA now. Sometimes that changes the chemistry of a team. The chemistry was there this year. So I think Johnny should take that chance. What do you think, Devin?
Man, it's tough because there's a lot of things that UCLA and Mick Cronin offer that will help Johnny improve on his game and improve on those areas of weaknesses that we touched on, creating for others, athleticism, defense, all those things. But like you said, Peyton Watson's coming in. What kind of impact is that going to have on cohesiveness? What kind of impact is that going to have on the offense? Who knows? We don't know. That's an up in the air thing. What we do know is that his stock is probably the highest that it's going to be. So I say go. I agree with you too. I say go. People are talking about him in that lottery conversation. I'm not there. On lottery. I think late first round, early second round is probably a good area for him because that allows him to have potentially
a chance to grow,
good fit on a high level team, or a second round pick being, less expectations than a lottery guy, and time to grow, like you said.
But I'm not with him on the lottery.
Yeah, I think, in the just kind of how things go now, Ronnie, there's too much on the line to risk going back, risk injury, risk not having a good season. If he isn't in the Pac-12 Player of the Year conversation, if UCLA doesn't make the tournament, his stock drops rapidly. So,
well, there's question mark. It's going to be critiqued. I think
sure, he's going to be under a microscope.
Yeah, I think in this age of constant news, people looking to Twitter all the time, 24 hours, always on their phone, it's going to be critiqued more than any other player. And I wanted to bring some players up. Sure. And again, they're not comparables to Johnny, but they might be a similar situation. Guys that should have left before they did leaving. James Forrest, who made that famous shot for Georgia Tech against USC. He came back. That was his freshman year. He came back. He stayed all 4 years and he never developed in a player. And people thought after his sophomore year, he should have went to the NBA. More recent, I think, is Ivan Rabb. Ivan played with the 1 year with Jaylen Brown. He was considered a top 5 player coming out of Bishop O'Dowd. And most people think he would have been a top 7 pick or so. He came back and he went much later. Other couple of names you could throw out there, Melo Trimble from Maryland, Joaquin Noah on that Florida team. Mark Macon, a little bit more old school. He led Temple on a great Elite Eight run his freshman year, and then he stayed all 4 years, and he never really it never really improved his stock there. So, those are names to think of. I think the two main names that I brought up that people would really pay attention to, obviously, are Ivan Rabb and Joaquin Noah.
Yeah. I think this is a situation like GameStop, the stock. Remember when people were messing with the stock and people kind of held on to it and weren't able to cash in on that investment. I think Johnny is going to do the cash in on investment type of situation because I think he may have learned something from his time at Kentucky, Ronnie. Fit and opportunity.
And that's something we should bring up. This is not his first college experience. He's an experienced college player. He did have a couple good games with Kentucky. It's not like he fell flat on his face. Maybe it wasn't a good fit, but he did show glimpses in games that he can score. He did have a couple games where he stepped up, had 15 points, started a couple games. So it's not like Calipari didn't see some talent. Maybe it just didn't work, and it didn't work for other players who've gone there, as we see other guys transfer. So I think he's going to look at that experience and say, hey, I took the chance, gambled, and left Harvard Westlake. I took a chance on going to Kentucky. Going back to UCLA was a chance. How many more chances am I going to get where it's going to be like it's a positive thing? Not everybody thought him leaving Harvard Westlake was the greatest positive decision. Not everybody thought, oh, he's going to go to UCLA. What does that mean? He's not, he can't play at that level, etc. Oh, it's a better fit. It just turned out to be a better fit. And that's a good positive thing. So he's got to take the positive, I think, and go with it for now.
You know what's going to be positive about that decision, Ronnie? His bank account.
Yeah.
That's going to be the all-important positive number that you're going to see, because 7 figs is a tough number to turn down. Number to turn down.
Especially when you were in a situation where you were transferring only a month, 12 months ago, and you didn't know where your career is going. Obviously, you believe in your ability, but you don't know where your career is going. And look what happened. So again, not everybody has a repeat performance. Not every team has a repeat performance. So I think Johnny's time is now. I do think he's on the rise, and I agree with you. I think anywhere from 25 to the end of the first round to high second round, which would be any good fit for him, would be good. If he goes a little higher, maybe then all kudos to him. But I think teams are going to see more established players who they looked at for a longer time. And obviously this is a good draft. So I think it would be great for him to go to a place where it's a fit.
All right, everybody, that's going to do it for our Johnny Juzang episode of On the Rise. And if you liked this show, make sure you head to the Ballislife Podcast Network YouTube page, because we have breakdowns of other potential NBA stars. We appreciate you tuning in with us each and every week. But until the next On the Rise, Ronnie and Devin are signing off.
What's up, Ballislife fam? Thanks for watching this video. If you want to support the movement, make sure you check out the product listing below this video and cop some of this merch.